episode of Real Talk with audio. Today I have with me my high school friend, Alyssa Lauster, who's putting on a great depression awareness event, and she's here to tell us all about it. How are you, Alyssa? How are you today, Alyssa?
I'm doing great, Devin. How are you?
Good.
Glad we could finally get the audio working. That's great.
And there will be no video for this podcast, just in case you guys are wondering, trying to watch the video. There is no video because we were having technical difficulties with the video. So, first question, Alyssa, tell us about your family's journey with depression as much as you're comfortable with sharing.
Oh my gosh, of course. So depression actually runs in our family, and I actually got clinically diagnosed actually when we were getting out of high school in 2014. It hit us pretty hard, especially just because I declined so quickly, and we didn't really know where to go for the right resources per se, so we had to do a lot of digging, and come to find out it actually definitely inhibits you getting better. So it took a long time for me to find like the right doctor, the right medicine, the right therapy, just to like get me at a point where I was basically being a normal human being again. Sad to say, but so yeah, I just wanted to put an event together where everyone could have all the resources they needed all in one place.
And well, that's great. And as most of you know, but some of you may not, if you don't know me and are listening to this podcast, is I have my own story kind of with depression. I literally had a nervous breakdown in my junior year of high school, and Miss Stewart, my aide at the time, Bonnie Stewart, was a saint for putting up with me because I would cry all day.
Aww.
I was not performing well because I wasn't sleeping. I was just a pain in the butt. So she is a saint for putting up with me. They thought I had ADD for many years, and the ADD medication was not working. There were more side effects than benefits. So my mom finally said, screw it, we're coming off this. And junior year, after my nervous breakdown, we went to therapy, of course, and 2 sessions in, she said, you have obsessive rumination, which basically, y'all can Google it, but it's basically like a step below OCD that causes obsessions and depression. So,
oh wow, okay.
So that is what I had for all these years instead of ADD. And so, and the doctors are not used to treating depression, especially in people with disabilities. So they just throw a bunch of ADD medications at you. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. And so that leads me into my next question. Tell me what your diagnosis process was like.
Well, it's kind of emotional, so I'll try not to lose it. So basically, one day my mom asked me, I had a boyfriend at the time, life was great, you would think nothing would be wrong, right? I have no reason to be upset, which I didn't. And she said, hey, are you excited for, one of your loved ones to come home? And I just started bawling. And I had all this just, like, random sadness, all of this, like, rage out of anywhere. It was either I would switch at the drop of a hat into this really angry person, which I never had been, or I would switch into this person that you would have thought I just lost, like my mom or my dad or someone really close to me, like this just uncontrollable sadness. And so she sat me down and she was like, hey, I think something's wrong. And I fought her on it because I didn't know what depression was. And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't have this. And so we went to the doctor. I was still at a pediatrician at the time, which I'm not knocking pediatrician doctors. They're great. But she was not really well-versed in depression, come to find out. And she actually told us that a little ways down the road after trying, I want to say 1 or 2 meds that didn't work. And at this point, I was really frustrated. I was thinking, I'm never going to get better. This is just something I'm going to have to live with, until I actually went to a different doctor that really sat me down and explained the importance of learning not just your triggers, but also doing things to help keep those hormones on balance, because as you just said, medicines have such horrible side effects. And when you're dealing with something so serious as like chemicals in the brain, I think it's definitely really important to find a doctor that will sit down with you and really work on what works best for your body, because not every medicine works the same. So that's how I got diagnosed, and it was definitely a journey from, I think I tried a total of like 5 different medicines. Again, they all work different for different people. So some that worked horribly for me, they work great for others. But and then I think I went to about 2 different counseling places, and that was really beneficial for me as well.
So yeah, and I just want to say in response to that, don't be ashamed to get therapy, because it took me, even after I was diagnosed, it took me until this past year to kind of start taking therapy seriously, and that whole journey is a whole nother podcast. But please don't be ashamed to go to therapy and really talk about your issues, because the only way anything's going to get better is if you talk about it. So
yeah. Well, and I think that's a great message for people too, because I was really against it at first without knowing kind of what that entailed. But I think in the long run, not just talking about like your goals and getting better, but I think it actually takes the light of a little bit of weight off of the people around you, because some of the things that you go through in depression are not regular thoughts of a normal person. Like my mom, some of the things I would tell her, I think really concerned her, really worried her. And I think that made me feel more ashamed of what I was going through. And I don't think anybody should feel ashamed of what they're thinking or feeling, because that's natural for what comes with depression. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not crazy. Nothing's like different about you. You just have a hormone imbalance, and it's not your fault. So I definitely think that was easier to talk to somebody medically about it who knew those thoughts, those, feelings and stuff, to kind of help me work through it, rather than someone who hadn't gone through it and I felt like I was worried would judge me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so how did this whole, like, well, first of all, are you still in therapy, if you don't mind me asking?
I am not. I think I was in therapy for, I want to say about 2 years. And then I finally got to a good point where I was still doing the things she recommended for me to do, and I haven't had to be back since. But I am totally not against going back.
And how did this whole event thing come about?
So that's funny you ask. If you don't mind, am I allowed to bring up religion?
Yeah, you're allowed to bring up religion on this podcast.
Okay. So, I actually did not want to do this event, because not only was I kind of putting my own personal story out there, I think I was definitely doing something that's kind of taboo to talk about. A lot of people don't like to talk about it, so I was really nervous. But I felt like I was being called to do it, and for all of you listening, I am religious, and if you're not, I'm not trying to impose my religion on you whatsoever, but I definitely had these thoughts one day, and it was after I was wanting to try to figure out my purpose and like what I should be doing, and I felt like I should be sharing one of my hardships and how God helped me overcome it and help people, help what I went through not happen to somebody else. So he was leading me to make this event, and this is where it gets crazy, because I kept having these thoughts like, it has to be in December, it has to be in December, and I was like, I know that's the highest rate of suicide and the holidays are really hard, but like, why does it have to be that? So anyways, I emailed the church and I said, it has to be around December. And they're busy. So I figured for sure they would tell me no. And they said, you know what? Yep, we actually have a date that's open. And I ran into somebody the other day who was telling me about one of their loved ones that I actually know going through a really tough, difficult time, and saying how hard it is for the holidays. And so many people on his thread were talking about it. And Pastor Jamie brought up this event, and she had no idea, but I kind of feel like I was doing it for that 100-some people that were on his post. Lo and behold, a lot of people do need it. So it was kind of a good validation for me.
And when is it and where is it?
Okay, so the event is called A Night for Light, a real talk about depression, and it is Tuesday, December 11th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m.
Yes, and make every effort you can to be there, because there are some great speakers at that event, and do you mind running through that list?
Of course not at all. So we have a panel of 4 licensed professionals, we have Barbara Shimmy. She will be the first speaker. She is a nurse practitioner, and she's going to be speaking on basically biologically and chemically what happens to the body and the brain. And then our second speaker, her name is Lynn Wagner. She is actually a licensed and registered practicing nurse, and she is also a teacher at Riverside, and she specializes in psychology. So she's going to be talking about signs and symptoms. So not only if you have it, or even if you don't and maybe not know you have it, this would be a good event for you, but also anybody that doesn't have it, because so many times depression hit our loved ones or our friends, and we have no idea, because sometimes the signs can be not very apparent. So she's going to go over all of that and some helpful tips. Cron Gibson is the third speaker. He's actually, I want to say, has the leading role and is one of the main counselors at Hopewell Counseling Center. So he's going to talk about the treatment side of things. And then we have Jamie Stewart. And he's going to, this is not a church event, but he's definitely going to touch on like religious warfare. And sometimes people that are religious will just say, oh, just love God more, when really that's great and God should always be an outlet. But sometimes things that are physical, that's actually a deterrent for people that are really sick and really need help. So he's just going to be touching on that. Yes, and I think there's a misconception, shall we say. And again, I love Jesus, so I'm not knocking religion at all. But there's a misconception in the church of, oh, people who are depressed, they just must not love Jesus enough, and that's so not true. It's killing people. It's literally killing people, and it's not okay. Yeah, I totally agree. So I'm definitely excited he will be talking on that. And so, is there anything else you would like to add before I get off here and play this call actually recorded? Okay. Well, again, it's Tuesday, December 11th, 6:30 to 8:30, and it's at Hub 757. It's 6801 Bridgeway Drive in Suffolk. And I just would like to tell anybody, even if you do not deal with depression, I highly recommend you come. I did not think I would ever deal with it, and it definitely hit my family hard, and it took about 5 years to get over it. So this is, if you encounter this later on, if your brother, sister, aunt, uncle, or even maybe your coworker, you would be able to pick up the signs and symptoms and possibly even save a life. Recommend resources. I'm actually handing out a sheet of resources that Devin has so kindly offered to help me pass out at the end of the night, and it's going to have a bunch of counseling centers all over the cities of Hampton Roads. That way you can hang it on your fridge, hand it to somebody you think is in need, may need it, and just bring friends. Go to dinner afterwards, make it a fun night, and, bring your questions. I don't know if I told you this, Devin, but we actually have an anonymous questioning in the middle, so you can bring your cell phones in and just send your questions into the number, and then all the different panel speakers will actually answer your questions on stage. Yeah, and please, if any first responders, anybody is listening to this, please make every effort you can to be there, because I think our first responders also need to get educated in this so they know how to better deal with it. Again, first responders are heroes. I'm not knocking them, but please educate yourself if you are a first responder out there, because there is an education gap, I believe. So if you are a first responder and you are listening to this by some miracle, please make every effort you can to be there, because it's going to be a really, really good night. So, thanks, Devin. Thank you for coming on. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I definitely hope everyone that comes enjoys it, and I cannot wait to meet all of you. You are so welcome, and I will put the link to register for this event in the show notes. It is free, but registration is required, so we know what room to put it in. So I will, in the show notes, look for y'all can look for the link to register. So that's going to do it. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, @DevinReaders. Alyssa, where can they follow you? My Instagram is List for short. I'm always welcome to new friends, and Facebook, Alyssa Marie Lauster, and I will definitely love to accept those friend requests. And if you have any personal questions, shoot them my way. I'm an open book. Okay. And like the We Will Talk All Things Inclusion Facebook page, and we will see you next Wednesday for the Survivor recap, hopefully with video. I don't know.
Hopefully with video. But we will see you then, and thank you for listening, and bye, everybody.
Bye.